Miami could be the Grand Prix that changes everything, and I'm not just saying that, I'm saying it because in the 5 weeks we've been racing, the entire grid did something that rarely happens with such intensity. Everyone developed at the same time, all aiming for the same goal, and that goal has a name: Mercedes. The team that won the first 3 races of 2026, 3 poles, 3 victories, and absolute dominance. So while the championship was on hold, McLaren built a completely new car. Red Bull arrived with the most important update of the year for Verstappen, and Ferrari introduced the package they had been working on for months in the wind tunnel. However, there's something more. The rule changes that come into effect this weekend are designed in theory to reduce exactly the kind of advantage that Mercedes has. So everything points in the same direction, towards Toto's team. Precisely the only team that, as far as we know, will not bring upgrades to Miami. So this weekend we could see a sharp turn in the championship, and stay until the end of the video to find out exactly why this turn could happen. We've had 3 Grands Prix in 2026, 3 pole positions from Mercedes, 3 victories, and, as I said, absolute dominance. In response to this, the rest of the grid watched, analyzed it, and used the break to do what no team can do when they're competing week after week.
Hacer cambios significativos al auto.
Because in Formula 1, when there's a race weekend, teams can bring new parts as upgrades. The problem is they have little time to develop them, and even less to test them. So the risk of ruining something that already works is huge. That's why the 5-week break was a unique opportunity, and it seems like everyone took advantage of it, especially McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari. The most striking case is McLaren. Andrea Stella, the team principal, confirmed something that is rarely heard in Formula 1. And that MCL40 arriving in Miami will be a completely new car. It's not just another development update or a modified wing. It's a new floor, new bodywork, new rear wing, and new brake ducts. A complete aerodynamic change. And seeing the team's result in Suzuka, the question arises, why such a radical change? The answer is very clear, because the weakness of the MCL40 since the first races has been cornering, and with all this, Stella was straightforward. The goal is not just to go faster, but also to make the car easier to understand, so that both drivers can push it to the limit without needing perfect track conditions. And then the next question comes up, is it going to work? We still don't know. But this is, without a doubt, the most ambitious upgrade coming to Miami, although that doesn't mean it will be more significant than the next 2 I'll talk about. Verstappen has been struggling for 3 races, 6th in Australia, retired in China, and 8th in Japan, with no chance of a podium, let alone a victory. In fact, this is his worst start to a season since his Formula 1 debut in 2015. And the problems aren't just about pure speed. The Red Bull has serious aerodynamic deficiencies. On top of that, it started out with a huge weight problem, around 12 kilograms above the minimum weight limit, and in Formula 1 that equals about 3/10 per lap. 3/10 that can't be recovered with driving or strategy. That's why for Miami, Red Bull has an answer. New components designed during the break that visually are identical to the previous ones, but they weigh significantly less. The projection is to go down from 12 kilos to between 6 and 7. In addition, they're bringing a new rear wing inspired by Ferrari's philosophy, which they tested with Verstappen at Silverstone during the break, the already well-known Macarena wing. And because of everything I just mentioned, Lauren Meeke said that Verstappen, and I quote, will start smiling when he sees the updates. And to me, that's a very strong statement, because if Verstappen has a fast car, the whole championship could change radically. The real question is whether the upgrades will be enough to compete for podiums or victories, or if they won't be enough, and on the contrary, Red Bull remains stuck in the midfield. But before we continue, if you're enjoying this video, subscribe.
Ferrari llega a Miami con la actualización que llevan meses preparando. Piso revisado para más carga aerodinámica, reducción de peso en varias zonas del chasis.
Subscribe, and also a software update to better manage their energy on the straights. The FIA has already changed the regulations for Miami. Subscribe. Except for where the engine cuts power to recharge the battery, now it lasts less for everyone, and that specifically hurts Mercedes, which was the team that made the best use of that advantage. I'll talk more about that later. For their part, Ferrari not only benefits from this rule like the rest, but also brings its own software to optimize how it manages energy within that new framework. Therefore, it has 2 layers of improvement on the same issue. On the other hand, there's the matter of the power unit update, which is expected around mid-season. Probably July, so even though we won't see it in Miami, this could have a big impact on the rest of the championship. But even without that, the SF26 should be a noticeably different car from what we saw in Japan. And who knows if with these changes they can give Mercedes a tougher fight. Either way, I wouldn't get my hopes too high because we're still talking about Ferrari, so we'll see on Sunday. Now, we've reached the main point of this video. Mercedes hasn't announced an upgrade package for Miami. There are no statements from Toto Wolff about a new car or rumors of an aerodynamic leap. The narrative surrounding the leading team this week is completely different. Their rivals are chasing them, and it seems like they trust what they already have, and there's something else to add to that. The regulation changes coming into effect in Miami are not neutral for Mercedes, but quite the opposite. They were the team that made the best use of clipping, and now the FIA has cut down that advantage. So it's not just that their rivals are bringing upgrades, but the rules have shifted against them, and that says something. Either the car has a more limited development ceiling than previously thought, and that will be seen in Miami, or they simply haven't shown the real limit of what their car can do. And it's that second option that's the most unsettling. Because if Mercedes has won the first 3 races without pushing their car to the limit, the upgrades from McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari, as well as the regulation changes, might not be enough anyway. For me, the most interesting scenario would be if McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari can really take a step forward. And that, for the first time in 2026, we see a qualifying session where pole position doesn't go to Mercedes, and neither does the win. What will happen on Sunday? Just like in the previous video, I have no idea, because even though there's a chance that someone could catch up to or even surpass Mercedes, the reality is that we don't know if that's something that will happen. However, there's one question that could change everything discussed in this video. Will there be a race on Sunday in Miami? Because there's a law in the United States and a storm forecast that casts doubt on whether the race will take place. So, if you want to find out why Sunday's race could be canceled, click here. Until next time.